And welcome back. This is part 2 of our Southern Oregon Sports Blog podcast this week. My name's Chris Phillips. I'm back here with Jack Cosgrove. And we're going to go ahead and start part 2 now, which is going to be the week ahead. We just finished part 1, which is the week that was, and this will be part 2, the week ahead. Let's go ahead and start with your Crater Comets. We finished with them in the last segment. We'll go ahead and start with them. They go to Eureka down in California this week. What are you expecting to see out of that game?
Eureka's coming into the game 1-3. They've had some pretty ugly losses. But at the same time, Crater coming into it, and we'll kind of go over the how Eureka got to 1-3.
Sure.
So Eureka played Enterprise, lost 31-14. Ukiah 40-35. So that's their closest game. Then they followed that game up at Shasta and lost 48-0.
Ooh.
And followed that up with a loss against Grenada. 42-7.
Okay.
So, they're coming into this one against a really, really good Crater team coming off 2 blowout losses.
Right.
But on the other hand, Crater cannot go into any game this year to where they feel like this is going to be an easy game, because that's where trap games happen. They know that conference starts right after this game. They could be looking forward to that.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you hope that they're not looking forward to Marist. You hope that they're looking into playing against Eureka.
And we were just talking about California, playing those California teams. It's just a different ball games. Even the teams that struggle in California tend to come in and play the Oregon teams tough.
Exactly. And I think that Crater has this weird thing to where what they're depending on is outscoring people. They've got we just talked about it. They have an extremely, extremely high-powered offense. They have a bend but don't break defense. And all they need their defense to do is just hold them just enough for them to get that last big hit in.
Right.
And it's evident by what their scores have been so far: 57-34, 44-38, and 41-37.
Okay.
So it's been, kind of, what's going to happen?
Right.
We talked about it at the soccer game.
Not like they're blowing people out.
Yeah, I've had 3 really, really good games,
Right.
especially the last 2 weeks, because it's been a really, really good high school competitive game. This week, I don't expect it to be that. I think this week they kind of went up and had that wake-up moment to where Mountain View had this team beat. They didn't take their first lead until the fourth quarter, extremely late in the fourth quarter.
Right.
I'd say 4 minutes to go. So that's kind of the come to Jesus moment, if you say it like that, where Coach Beck is probably talked to them and said, you know what, you guys escaped with this one, because if that kicker makes 2 of those field goals,
missing
it's
3
a loss.
field goals,
It's a loss. So what they need to do, honestly, is they need to just be smarter, be more disciplined, show more experience, and just be smart. Don't make the mental mistakes, because that's giving free first downs and free yards, and it's allowing your defense to stay on the field longer. It's keeping your offense off the field. Just get out there, take care of business.
Right.
Let the defense do their job. The
Right.
offense needs to stay high octane. And I think that this is the week that they have to get everything together, because going into Marist, and then right after Marist, they have to play Ashland. And Ashland doesn't lose on turf. They are the quickest team, I think, in 5A in terms of just pure athleticism.
Number 4 team right now. They beat last week the number 5 team, Summit, who features Drew Bledsoe's son at quarterback. So they beat them, a team that had been averaging almost 60 points a game.
And they only gave up 14.
Held them to 2 touchdowns.
So that's where, things are going to get interesting for Crater. We look at the non-conference thing, and if they go undefeated in non-conference, that's fantastic. That does nothing for your season.
Right.
It's fun for bragging rights.
Right.
But when you get into
matters
playing,
at the end. It matters for overall record, for stuff like that.
But they're also going to look at what you did in conference. And if
Right.
you lose your games to Marist and Ashland, you beat Eagle Point, and you have a decent conference schedule, at the end of the day, they're still going to look at that as you have to play these conference guys in playoffs again.
Yeah.
So, it's really time to start, squeezing things together, getting things tighter, so that once you get into the league games, you don't have to worry about the dumb mistakes anymore, the easy turnovers.
Right.
You're not giving other teams extra bullets to put in you.
Sure.
So I think Crater wins this one pretty handily. I think that this is the first complete game that they play of the season.
Which would be nice and something to build on.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they need. I mean, they have everything you need to be a true contender. They have an extremely good kicker. They have great special teams. They have an amazing offense. They have a good defense. If the defense can play a full game, a full 48, So I think this is the week that everything comes together for them. I think it's a relatively easy game for them. I think that they win. I'm saying 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Going into conference, they kind of get everything ironed out. At least that's what you hope for.
Right.
If this game is closer than it should be, then there's some issues that you have to worry about.
Marks going forward. But if they can take care of business this week, like you said, roll into conference play looking good and feeling good, they're on the right track.
As long as Calvin Gillespie does not get hurt, this Crater team can go extremely deep. But if he gets hurt, I mean, it's the Boobie Miles syndrome. Yep. If he goes down, there's not going to be a Comer that steps up and carries this team. So.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Thurston at Grants Pass. We'll move on to the 6A teams. Thurston at Grants Pass. You were saying Thurston 0-3 right now. Struggled last year. They have a few explosive players on offense, but it's one of those real thin teams. Not really a complete team. But as you mentioned, the 2 weeks right after this, they go into Spiegelberg. Mm-hmm. Both weeks, North and South Medford. Mm-hmm. So this would be they're coming off that Sheldon game and looking ahead to 2 games in Spiegelberg. So this Thurston game could actually sneak up on them, and they really need to go in there and take care of business. Dylan Hanley's done a nice job filling in for Easton Bentz at quarterback. He looked pretty good last week. He struggled against Newburgh, for sure. Pick 6 on your first pass ever as a high school quarterback. But the coaches were really pleased with how the seniors and the other kids on the team rallied around him, didn't let him get down. Really said, you know what, you're our guy. You're the one who's going back in there. You're the one who's going to be our leader. So this Thurston game could be very interesting. I think they probably take care of business at home. I mean, they're clearly the stronger team. They have the strength on both lines to really rely on. And so I think, and they have some good playmakers. Caden Lopez had 120 yards receiving last week. Dylan Hanley's getting more and more comfortable. Jake Stoffel is a solid running back, a kid who can do a lot of damage. So I think Grants Pass probably takes care of business, but I think you're absolutely right. They need to go in there with the mentality that we need to take care of business tonight, because this Thurston team could easily jump up and surprise them.
Yeah, they kind of talk about it in everything that I've always played. Is, on any given Friday or any given Saturday, any team can do what they want to based on looking past the team, underestimating the team, thinking this one's in the bag or anything like that. So I think as long as Grants Pass comes in knowing that, hey, we're not Grants Pass of last year.
Right.
We're going to have to work a lot harder than that team did last year because we don't have the people that we had last year. You need
so many playmakers all over the place.
So you need younger guys to step up and kind of buy into the system and buy into the team-first mentality.
Sure.
Which I don't see anybody being selfish or anything up in Grants Pass. They've always been really, really good at staying together and staying one unit. But yeah, it can absolutely be a trap game. I don't foresee it being a trap game for Grants Pass. I think that they kind of have to have the same mentality that Crater does. Is you're going into South Medford and North Medford the next 2 weeks. This is a dress rehearsal.
Sure.
This is take care of business first and foremost, but we need to iron some things out so that when we do get into the Berg, we're not showing up.
Right.
So
we're not trying anything out. Nothing's new once we get into those games. These things have to be, like you said, ironed out. These things have to be running smoothly before you get into those games. 2 in a row, South and then North, back to back at Spiegelberg.
And even with a North team that's down this year, which we're going to talk about in just a second, it's still North Medford.
Right. And again, like we just saw, a South team that's thin and young, but those 4 especially, those 4 explosive playmakers can really do some damage.
They're the real deal.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to South Medford. They are going to have their hands full. They go to Sheldon.
Yeah.
So it's going to be tough for them to come out of this game. Sheldon's a team as really the class of the conference this year. They were really disappointed last year that they lost that game to Grants Pass at home. Cost them basically their conference season. I mean, they still ended up going to state semifinals. They were still a Final Four team.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of loss that drags your ranking down, drags your everybody else's perception of your season down.
Well, it's kind of, always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
Right.
That's the kind of season that happens. With the team that I play for, the Buzzards, we were a Final Four team.
Right.
All of us are completely, 100% not happy with the way our season ended because we are one of those teams that's championship or bust.
Sure.
And Sheldon is the same way. Sheldon is born and bred to be champions up there, much like a Lake Oswego,
right?
Much like a Jesuit.
We were just talking. I was talking with a friend of mine about Alabama.
Yeah.
Same way.
Yep.
So this loss to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Is huge because nothing else matters in places like that.
No.
Second place doesn't
There isn't a
matter.
second place.
Right.
That's first loser to a lot of these schools. If you look at USC is another school right now that just took a big loss.
Tough loss
and
to
they are back to being no sanctions. They're getting scholarship players. Now they're getting, Juju Smith and those kind of guys.
This is supposed to be back to the USC we remember.
And they still can be, but the loss to Stanford is a big one, and they've got a big rivalry with Stanford anyway. But looking into it, like you said, South Medford is still on the cusp of what are we? Are we going to be, that really, really skilled team that doesn't make it over the hump and everybody, what happened?
Sure.
What is? Or are we going to be the team that, start slaying the monsters and Sheldon and Jesuit and Westland and those kind of teams? So, that's the thing that South Medford needs to do. They definitely need to grow. They're extremely young, like you talked about. The Sheldon team can definitely be a game where morale can get hurt really quickly depending on what happens.
You go down big early and things can start to spiral and get ugly.
So last year, South didn't play against Sheldon too bad. It was a closer game than a lot of people give them credit for. They had a ton of bad turnovers. As long as you limit the turnovers against Sheldon, you have the playmakers. Anytime that you have teams and schools like Notre Dame or Alabama looking at people on your roster from Southern Oregon, you're doing something right. You have the same quality athletes, if not better athletes, than they have up north.
Sure.
It's how you play with everybody, though, because you're only as good as your weakest
link. You got to put the whole thing together.
Exactly.
And that's why, South Medford has all those players that they really feel like that team that next year will be their big step.
The next 2 years for South Medford is going to be the 2 years that are going to make or break this team.
Right.
So they have to take advantage now.
And the last one on our schedule for TableRock Sports, South Eugene at North Medford. So that's another game that South Eugene struggled last year. They were a bottom 2 team in the conference. Actually, they would have been the last team in the conference because Thurston ended up making the playoffs as 2-7. So they would have been, and they will be in Spiegelberg to take on the Black Tornado. So I think a chance for North Medford to get healthy here.
Yeah. I think North Medford has to come into this one, not feeling good about being 1-2, but knowing that it's a clean slate.
Yeah.
Now they get to come into it in their conference and start making some noise. I can tell you right now that the years that we played against North Medford, we never had a bad team. North never had a bad team. But the one thing that you hear throughout everything is, you could go winless the rest of the year, but you don't lose against South Medford. So there's 2 games that are really going to be huge.
Well, that's your rivalry, right?
Yeah. So that's the cool clean slate that North Medford gets is you got conference. You still have the chance to beat South Medford. You still have the chance to beat Grants Pass and go into the playoffs.
Right.
And
Sheldon, the only one that really looks to be in kind of a class of their own. Everybody else is a big group there.
So everybody else, as long as you can make it into the playoffs, it's a clean slate.
Right.
And it does not matter at all what you did in the regular season, who you lost to, how many points you lost by or anything. So this, for North Medford, like you said, is a chance to get healthy. And it's also a chance to just make it to the playoffs and learn throughout the season who you are, what you can do, what you can't do. So when the playoffs do roll around, you've got all those guns or the bullets in your gun to go at whatever team you're going to be playing.
You know what you're good at.
Yeah.
You know what you can excel at. You know what kind of weaknesses you can exploit on the other side.
Yeah. And you've got so many new players this year that are stepping into key roles that you have to figure out what this team is because it's going to be a completely different team than you had last year, and it's going to be a completely different identity.
Right.
So,
and that's the thing with high school sports. It's like that every year you get that kind of turnover.
Yeah,
it's a whole different cast of characters.
It's extremely rare at the high school and college level because there's constantly moving pieces. And for coaching, I think that's the hardest. If you're going to be a coach and really want to test yourself, you go to college, you go to high school because you now don't have the same core group for 10 years that you can build around.
And you're seeing a bigger variety of things to coach against.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in, like you said, high school and colleges. You're seeing things you would never see in the pros.
No.
Things that are eliminated just out of hand.
Yeah, they're not going to do.
You're going to see stuff you've never seen before.
Yeah, they're not going to do. I mean, already I've seen fake field goals.
Yeah.
Fake punts. I've seen wing tees.
Yep.
I've seen the wishbone. I've seen, so many different things that, like you said, in the NFL, you just axe it. Like, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to spread it out. We're going to, be heavy, whatever. But in college and in high school, you have to take those chances.
Every little advantage you think you can get, you're looking for every little thing.
So, it's high school is such a fun thing to broadcast, first of all, and to be a part of. Because, we've talked about it on the Crater broadcast. When you play football, you're extremely blessed, first of all, because there's a million people that would love to do what you get to do. And for seniors, especially, not a lot of you guys are going to play football after this. This is it. This is where you go from football all-star.
This isn't big-time Southern California football. This isn't, This
is where your journey ends, for lack of better words. So this is where you go from football star to, grocery bagger next year, and everybody's like, hey, you were, such and such last year.
I remember that name.
So enjoy it. Every time you step on the field, it's a privilege to do so, and just enjoy every minute that you have, because once it's over, like Shaq just said to Kobe, he just made a really good thing. He said, you know what? If you can still play, if you have anything to contribute at all,
do it.
Stay, because once it's gone, you'll never get it back. So that's kind of how I hope coaches are talking these kids up, like, hey, there is no tomorrow for a lot of you guys. Yes, there's a game next week, but that's one less game that you have.
Well, that's great. That finishes up our TableRock teams. We'll go ahead and take a quick rundown of some of the other big games across the state. South Salem at West Salem. That's going to be a good game. South Salem 3-0 right now. West Salem actually the team that eliminated Grants Pass in last year's playoffs in the round of 8. So that's going to be a good team to see, or a good game to see who's going to take control of that Greater Valley Conference. Like we were saying before, every single game, every single week in the Three Rivers Conference is big. Sherwood at Lake Ridge, Westland at Newburgh, Lake Oswego at Tualatin, who's 3-0, Tigard 0-3 at Canby, who gave North Medford all they could handle.
Yep.
So every game, every week in that league is big. Central Catholic at Centennial. Centennial, another surprise 3-0 team, taking on, obviously, the perennial power Central Catholic at just 1-2, eking out the victory last week.
Yeah.
But that's going to go a long way towards determining where Central Catholic ends up and if Centennial really is for real. The other big one, I thought there was one more I wanted to go to, but I can't find it now. So that'll do it. I think we did good. That was a good little week ahead preview.
I think that, the people that tune in are going to know a little bit more about each team.
I hope so.
And, I hope when you guys tune in, a lot of the things that we told you guys to watch for, you guys get to see.
Right.
And hopefully there's some surprises that even we didn't see.
Right. Yeah, that's always what makes it fun.
Yeah.
See what you never would have expected.
Yeah, there's still plenty of surprises left to be had in this season. Anybody can go down, like we talked about, on any given night. All it takes is one injury.
Right.
Or one bad night from somebody to completely change the entire conference.
So thanks for tuning in. He's Jack Cosgrove. I'm Chris Phillips. We'll sign off for now. Remember to tune in. TableRockSports.net. Always check out the games. We actually have a doubleheader for Grants Pass and South Medford tonight. Always action on the football action on Friday nights.
Yep.
Always tune into those. We'll go ahead and sign off for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week.